Welcome, everybody, to Healing Starts Here, where we have conversations that might just change the way you see health and healing. Today, we are talking to a psychic medium. That's right. What does a psychic medium have to do with healing? We're going to find out. Rael Reddick is her name. She's based out of St. Croix, Virgin Islands, and she has been a long time medium. That means, yes, she talks to the dead people. Yeah, but she also talks to land. And she's going to tell us all about how our connection to land really affects us. It affects a bigger picture and how listening can change everything. I know you're going to be as excited to hear this conversation as I am to have it.
Welcome to Healing Starts Here with Mary Greensmith and Dee Nicole. We believe that healing is bigger than any one modality, technique, or philosophy. It begins with curiosity. It begins with connection. It begins with a willingness to explore what is possible. Join us as we dive into conversations about energy, vitality, homeopathy, intuition, nature, personal growth, and the many ways people around the world are finding their path to greater well-being. Together, we'll meet fascinating guests, explore different healing traditions, and ask the questions that help us better understand ourselves and each other. Because every healing journey starts somewhere, and healing starts here.
Welcome to Healing Starts Here. We are speaking with Rael Reddick, psychic medium, person extraordinaire. Rael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
As you guys know, we are all about having conversations about healing, conversations that will shift your perspective, inspire new ideas, new ways of thinking about what it means to be healthy. So before we even really get into things, Rael, will you just tell all of our friends who are joining us today just a little bit about you and your work? We'll go from there.
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Rael. I am a psychic medium. So that means that I connect to those that have crossed over. So I talk to the dead, putting it simply. Not only do I help people connect to their loved ones who have crossed over, but we also talk to guides. We give them intuitive guidance. And what I really love to do is connect to properties as well and get the messages from the land and learn patterns, and it fills in the gaps and it corrects some of the inconsistencies, which, working with spirit, there's always some inconsistencies of how the story was brought forward. So anytime that we can clear that up and learn something from it, it's always exciting to me.
So talk to us about that, because that's one of the most interesting things that you really excel at doing is working with land and working with property. And I have always maintained that our relationship with the earth, our relationship with land, our relationship with nature is integral to health. So talk to us just about how does it work when you read a property?
So when I read a property, I will connect to two different energies or frequencies. And I have identified them for myself. This isn't any technical term, but I have the ancestral energy and the structural energy. So, structural energy is energy of experience that has passed through any type of structure. So, a house, a building, anything that's left on the land itself. And I will connect to that energy. It's more of some people will call it a residual energy, but it holds a frequency and can carry a message with it. Whereas the ancestral energy is more from the land and those that walked on it or used to live there. So that's where I'm talking to ghosts and I'm actually connecting to Gaia herself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. My question now is, have you seen this really affect the people who are there on the land right now? Say you and I, we're living on a piece of property. Have you seen these energies that you're talking about, the ancestral, the structural? Have you seen that impact people's real lives?
Absolutely. It impacts people's lives because what happens is, and what I find is we're living in a pattern and the land will carry that pattern. But if we can connect to the land and hear the messages and hear what it has to share with us, it gives us the opportunity to learn how to break those patterns. In some cases it'll give us guidance. So as an example, I've worked with real estate agents who haven't been able to sell a property. They don't know why it won't sell. And it's because how they're trying to sell the property is not conducive to what the land wants. And as long as we can get those messages, then the real estate agent can then use that information to sell the land the way that it needs to be sold, meaning find the buyer or convert it to a use that is more in alignment with what the land wants or needs. What happens when we do that is we break those generational patterns and we break the patterns that are continuing to move forward. And so it has a profound impact on the people that live there, the people that pass through there, and it brings an enlightenment to them that they weren't otherwise aware of, because we get into our daily lives and we keep doing what we've been taught because we're not shown any other way. And what the land brings forward is, let me show you another way. Does that make sense? It gets
Really
really.
interesting. So let me ask you on this level, because I hear you on the energy of it. And if everything is energy, absolutely it makes sense. Why wouldn't the land also hold an energy that needs to be communicated and integrated and aligned? Say I'm living on a property and I haven't taken the time to listen, or I even have the awareness to know to listen. Where would I even begin to recognize? Would this be affecting me mentally? Would this be affecting me physically? Would this be, only coming up when I'm trying to sell it or start a business? Or like, what does it really look like?
It's going to look different for every person, but you're going to feel it energetically. You're going to feel it physically. You're going to feel it mentally. If we have a moment where we're stuck and we keep trying to do something and it just doesn't work, and we try it again and it doesn't work, and we try it again and it doesn't work, this is the land's way of saying, you're not doing what I need you to do. We could feel it mentally we could feel mental fog versus a mental clarity. There's always health issues that can come along with it. If our health is impacted by what we're doing on the land, we're going to notice, I always call it challenges, but let's say you have constant congestion, you're never quite feeling right, you've got headaches, you could have balance issues. That's the other thing that I've seen. And so you can have a physical impact because what you are trying to continue to do is not in alignment with the land. And if we try to move forward without an awareness, so everybody has the awareness. Well, okay, everybody has the ability. We don't all have the awareness, right? We write it off to something else. So if we're not in tune with that awareness, the land is going to show us a different way in order to identify what's going on. And if it is not in alignment with what is intended or desired, we're going to run into challenges. We're going to run into um, constant issues where what we're trying to do isn't going to work. It's just not going to work.
So, what are the kinds of things that land wants? And why is what it wants more important than what I want? Or
It's
is it?
not that it's more important, it's that it has an awareness of what is in the best and highest good. So,
Mm.
as an example, I read a property close to where I live in the Virgin Islands, and it was a large farm. And the owner of the farm wanted to plant a specific crop in this one area of the farm. And every time he tried to plant it, it would die. So when I went in and connected to the land, it was because in order to grow the crop he was wanting, it was going to require too much water that the land in that area could not provide.
Hmm.
So he was directed to plant it in a different location that, interestingly, was downhill and would collect more rainwater and therefore not require him to drain his cisterns as much in the drought ridden areas or the drought ridden times, so that he could always grow this crop and not be subject to just a season.
I see. So
And the land knows this.
it wasn't even what the land wanted. It was just this knowledge that was going to be really useful for everybody involved.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly. I love to garden. And I will always ask, where should I put this? Now, sometimes my human brain takes over and I put it where I think it's going to look pretty, and it dies every time. And just before it dies, I always apologize and I always move it. And then I ask, where do I need to plant this? And if I listen to the land, it thrives every time.
So, how does that relate? Because we hear there's so much talk. It is almost as though it is the trend of the hour about ancestral healing. And you are talking about this ancestral connection through land. Tell us more about that and how it can help us bring that healing in.
Well, ancestral messages are kind of a twofold message. It's what the land has to teach, because remember, the land's been here forever, and what those who have walked on the land have their knowledge and their wisdom that can be brought forward. When we listen to both of those combined, it's like getting advice from your mom and dad and from your grandparents and from your favorite aunt and uncle, right? Now you got the whole family involved. When we are able
Sounds
to
like a lot.
right? When we're able to take all of that and we're able to put it together, it allows us the wisdom and the knowledge and the path forward to break patterns. And patterns are happening literally all around the globe every day. If you look at the areas where, and I say this because it's prevalent in the news this time of year, but if you look at the areas where there is a lot of forest fires, and we continue to say, all build again, all rebuild. Well, maybe it's trying to tell us that your house is burned down 3 times because you keep putting it in the same forest that continues to burn down. There could be someplace else that would be better to build. We can break those family patterns. We can break past traumas. There's so much that can be brought forward to help us as we realize what is in the best and highest good. Just because we're taught something doesn't mean that it's in alignment or right for us. It means here's some knowledge. Now just determine whether or not it's applicable for you and use that to move forward. But instead, what we do as humans is we get this knowledge and say, well, I was told that this is how you have to do it. So this is how I have to do it. And then we pass that knowledge on to the next person and they pass it on to the next person. And before you know it, you've got 6 generations doing the exact same thing in one form or another. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. But I want to circle back to you bringing up this idea of past trauma and held trauma and
Mhm.
maybe even ancestral trauma. Can you just give us some examples of what you've seen in this area? Because it's one of the ones that we are hearing more and more about how it impacts us personally in our health and wellness today. And there's this such a big idea that I am going to break the patterns for my family, or I have to do this, or I'll never be well again. So it's becoming really important. Just talk to us a little bit about what you've seen.
Um, there's been a lot of examples, but um, the first one that comes to mind is there was a property reading that I did where I don't even know how to articulate it, but it was a very large property. It was an estate, and the owner wanted me to figure out why there was paranormal activity going on. And they had it all documented. It was on film. They had infrared cameras. They were trying to use the property as an event venue, and they were also using it to open a little clothing boutique store. It's an amazing property. When I don't even know where to start. When I stepped foot on the property, a woman named Mary stepped forward. And I was able to not only connect to her, but connect to the land itself and how the land was utilized. And the land was not utilized in a way that honored humanity, that honored the human life. And unfortunately, it housed a very large village for the enslaved population that ran it. Mary happened to be one of those people. And because of the proximity of the great house to the rest of the property, the original owner kept putting the enslaved village what he thought was out of sight, but it kept being put in what we call a gut, which is the ravine that the water passes through. So every time there was a heavy rain, it would get flooded out and it would get washed out. And he kept having to rebuild it. And he kept having to rebuild it. And they were trying to say, don't build it there. But he was more worried about the visual impact and the personal impact to him having what he saw as less than so close to his great house.
I'm sure there
Now,
was concern about society too and what they would have thought.
there was societal concerns, there were and through the course of all of this, there were all these messages that were coming forward, and it was all under this same theme of worried about what everybody else thinks, says, or does. Now, all of the owners of that property, going back, working with historians and archaeologists, all came down with some form, and they called it something different in the 1700s, with some form of dementia
Mm.
and altered mental state. So not only did they become forgetful, but the fear that came up in that dementia state also led to altered thinking and altered reality. So the owner that had called me in, what I kept hearing is nobody's listening. Nobody is listening. And that included the current owner. And what Mary kept bringing forward was she's not listening to us. She needs to listen. She's so worried about what everybody else thinks that she's not listening to what we're trying to share with her.
Wow.
And so I said, okay, well, I'm here now and I am listening. And I said, what do you need her to know? And they said, it's important to remember that what you think and what you know are two different things. Do not proceed until you know, because it's not safe to move forward based on an opinion of what you think.
Well, that's certainly going to shift the paradigm for
Right?
for folks,
And it
right?
was very profound. It was very, very, very profound. And after all of this came forward, I asked the owner, I said, what are you looking to do? And you're obviously running into challenges. Well, they wanted to open it up for events, but she had this image of what the events needed to look like.
Mm.
And she was thinking some grand royal opulence. And they said, you can have certain occasions that can be dressed up as opulent, but you have to make this venue available to all and share it with the history and reflect the truth. Now, up to this point, she was having trouble getting the property rezoned to open it up for events. They were running into plumbing issues, building issues, permit issues. Every time they would try to do something with the building, something would come up and they couldn't proceed. Once she got these messages and she understood the direction, she got her rezoning done in a matter of weeks. She shifted what she was trying to do with the property in what she was trying to refurbish and renovate, or restore versus renovate. And she had to learn the difference between restoration and renovation.
Mm.
Right? Renovation is our vision. Restoration is showing the truth.
Yeah.
And in this restoration, she had the opportunity to relocate the enslaved village, but yet
Wow.
put a plaque where it used to be with the true history of why she relocated it, which brought forward a respect, not only for the purpose of the land and what the land was trying to do, which was provide water and nutrients and life and allow things to flow. It could now do that. And she provided respect for the past trauma, which was able to move towards healing all of it. Does that make sense? It was
Yeah.
very profound. It was really deep.
Yeah. It's almost as though she was unconsciously, probably, continuing that same pattern of the guy who wanted the village out of sight and things to be seen a certain way by pursuing that idea of opulence and this is what it's going to be and we're not going to look this direction at these things. Yeah, I can see the
Exactly.
pattern and how it needed to be shifted.
Yep. And so she was able to shift it and and put some healing into the past trauma, but also heal the land. Because
Yeah.
every time somebody would put a village or buildings or anything, what you're doing is you're creating a dam. And eventually the water's going to flow and the dam's going to break. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. There's two sides to this that I can have a positive impact on. And it was very profound, and it was working with the historian after the fact. I was excited because the historian had done a full history of the property going back 250 years, and had put together a complete compilation of it with names, and had gone back to Denmark to get this history. And it was exciting to me when they were able to present me with a copy of it and the records, which the Danish kept outstanding records. But they showed me who Mary was, and she gave me enough detail to identify herself.
Very
And
cool.
so it it helps that human side of us that go, yeah, but how do you know? You know, they were able to prove it and validate it. And now it's a thriving venue, I should say. And twice a week, they offer guided tours with a historian. They do teas. They open it up for weddings and what have you. But it turns out it was also one of the sites of the very first botanic gardens in the Caribbean, and they're working on bringing that garden back. And so it's exciting, and the land is really flourishing, and all paranormal activity stopped after I visited, and we were able to shift the direction that they were going.
Wow. I guess the true telling will be if the people who live there don't end up in dementia or altered mental states, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's only been a few years, so far they don't they're all there. They got all their marbles. They're still in the game.
Well, time will tell. One of the interesting things about what you said that I don't think was highlighted quite enough was that you go and read these properties, and then afterwards you connect with historians or find the history of the place as part of your process. And that's one of the things that lets you validate it for all of us who have moments and saying, okay, that's a really cool story, but but
Yeah,
is it really true? Is the paranormal activity itself really true? Well, then it stopped. Yeah, and you can go back and have that validation because there's so much history around us. There are people who carry these stories, but we've lost our traditions of being able to pass those down. So it's a really, really cool thing that you bring in of not only am I going to go and trust and pass on the messages, but then look at this. We can also validate it for every level of thinker out there and
exactly.
and really let everyone to connect.
hmm I love working with the historians, and I also work with archaeologists. And in some cases, I've had to work with archaeologists. And when I can bring a piece of the story forward, and they can then bring the artifact forward that they weren't quite able to place, but with both pieces of the puzzle, it makes complete sense. And it's fun to be in my mindset and my kind of thinker, and then you work with an archaeologist, and both of us get that aha moment. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Working with the archaeologists, we're given artifacts, but we don't stumble on them by luck. We find the artifacts when the earth is ready to reveal them, and when history is ready to reveal it, to give us that clue or that breadcrumb into the next piece that we need to identify, or into the next story that we now need to research. They give us those artifacts when we're ready for the information, but it's nothing more than a clue. It's up to us to listen and to dig deeper and to pay attention to what it then has to say.
You know, part of the reason we do this podcast and have these conversations because there are these universal themes with everyone we speak to across all sorts of disciplines when it comes to healing. And one of them you just mentioned is that listening and then things being revealed as we're ready.
Yeah.
And we take those steps to get us to our next step. Yeah. And another one of them, which is probably core to my work, is that when we heal the land, we heal ourselves. When we heal ourselves, we heal the land. We're not separate from our planet. We're not separate from our environment. We're part of it. And the
Yeah.
moment we can start realizing that that energy doesn't exist outside of us, but actually through and around us, then we can
Mhm.
start operating really, really differently.
Absolutely. I mean, I love to have my morning coffee every morning on my front porch, and I talk to my plants. I will usually play native flute music. They love that. I talk to my trees. When my trees are fruiting, I thank them. And I know that my neighbors probably, I don't know this. I just assume my neighbors think I'm the crazy lady on the block. And I'm okay with that. We have a guest house on our property, and I've never seen it more prevalent than this one particular situation. We had some people come in, and they had three big dogs and couldn't find a place to rent. It's a long story. Anyway, we rented to them for just a few weeks, and we fenced it off so that their dog stayed separate from ours, and we tried to give them their privacy because it's very close to our house. And there's a lot of trees and flowering trees, fruit trees, and their energy was so combative. Number one, as a couple, they fought all the time. There was no volume unless it was yelling, like high volume. This is how they communicated. They yelled at their dogs. Their dogs barked incessantly. And my husband and I aren't like that. We have a very quiet lifestyle. In a matter of just a few short weeks, all the grass died. There was no grass left over there. All the grass died, and all the trees started to die. They were wilting. It didn't matter how much rain we got. Their color became dull and muted. It wasn't bright. It wasn't vibrant. And they were on the left side of the driveway. We have fruit trees on the right side of our driveway. The fruit trees in that area around the guest house did not fruit that year. All the other fruit trees on the property fruited. Those trees did not fruit. We have mango trees, we have breadfruit, we have avocado. None of them fruited that year. They left. I spent a lot of time walking through the property and apologizing. And I saged, and I would go and talk to them, and I would thank them for their strength and resiliency and holding on. And then slowly they all came back, and now they're as healthy as they've ever been, and they fruit every year, and they flower every year. And that was our indication that it's okay if we have people come and stay for a week, but we can never rent that property out and let somebody else stay there. They're very, very sensitive to the energy that you expose them to. I know they've done scientific studies on it. I don't know what they're called, but I know they have. They play like heavy metal for one plant and orchestra music for another, and one grows thorns and one doesn't. It's you know, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, amazing. Well, while I could talk to you forever, and I'm sure our listeners have many, many questions, we are going to wrap things up because of time. But I'm just going to offer if there was any last thing that you wanted to leave people with for them to understand about these energies and how it affects healing, what would that be?
The energy around us is also the energy within us,
There you
and
have
it's
it, guys.
all connected.
It's all connected. as above, so below, as within, so without. Thank you
Exactly.
so, so much for joining us, Rael. Guys, if you want to learn more about Rael, visit her website, Rael Psychic. You'll see it down in our notes. But we are so, so grateful to begin to have this conversation, which is going to be so different from any of our others. Thank you for
Well,
sharing with us what you do.
thank you very much. And thank you for bringing the subject forward and giving me an opportunity to at least try and articulate it. I appreciate it. It's magical.
Well, the pleasure is ours, and we'll just remind everyone that healing starts right here. And that was our conversation with Rael Reddick, psychic medium, talking to us about connecting to land, connecting to place, and how that helps us heal. You can find more information about her at raelpsychic.com. That's Rael. And hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. It sparked some sort of curiosity within you that might not have been there before, because here at Healing Starts Here, that's why we have these conversations. Like, subscribe so we can continue having more, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for spending this time with us on Healing Starts Here. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to explore, reflect, and trust your own unique healing journey. Remember, there is no single path to well-being, only the one that feels right for you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who may need to hear it. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep exploring what's possible. Because every healing journey starts with a single step, and healing starts here.